What's happening, everybody? I'm Tommy, and you are on the Love Boat. Hope you're having a good night. I'm not going to do a whole lot of hellos. I might get to some a little bit later on, but I got a lot of stuff that we're going to be going over. Johnny Scoville, you make a mess. I've got a lot of stuff that we're going to be going over. This is a subject matter that people take issue with, right? People get really kind of dicey about this whole, are the elections rigged? Are they solid? There's a lot of people that, a lot's been made about this candidate saying that the election was stolen, Trump saying the election was stolen, all of this jazz, right? So I did a little research and I started looking at some stuff. And anytime you look this up, what is going on there? Anytime you look this up, what you're going to get, by the way, can I get a 5x5? Happy 20 months, Mittens. Wow, 20 months is a long time. Boy, I appreciate that. That's awesome. Let's pop that up there. Yeah, it's almost 2 years. Thank you for the math there, Johnny Scoville. I was told there wouldn't be any.
They said I couldn't learn.
Good looking out. They did say you couldn't learn. There's a lot of truth to that. Thank you, people. I like to hear that. So here's the deal. They will tell you that there is no fraud whatsoever in U.S. elections. And I mean none. 0.00003. Did you catch that?
I did.
That means you would need a lot of those just to come up with a penny. You feel me? This is a really long set of zeros, man. So there's no fraud whatsoever. In fact, if you take almost 2 billion, that's what it'd be. 2 billion or 2,000 million votes cast in the US, only 1,300 times did somebody try to interfere with an election. And that's got to make you feel good. That's a warm and fuzzy. We got nothing to worry about. Sorry, it's already in there, bro, or it wouldn't be doing that. Here, let me help you out. Sorry, folks, but he's a fairly dangerous man. There you go. You got it, Jay. Well, so there's no fraud whatsoever, and this has got to make everybody feel good. And there's a bunch of different places out there that will tell you that. This is the Lifeboat, Love Boat, and we've done an awful lot of talking about drugs coming across the southern border. And if I were to say to you, last year they caught 25 tons of fentanyl. So the only dope that got into the United States or would have gotten into the United States is 25 tons of fentanyl. You would go, well, that doesn't make sense because it doesn't account for anyone that didn't get caught. That's exactly what's happening with our elections. And I mean bad. Let me give you an idea of how this sort of works. In the 2020 elections, we blew the gates open for mail-in ballots, right? And literally millions upon millions and millions of mail-in ballots came in. And these ballots don't get touched much. We also had a lot of states, all, by the way, Democrat states, just keeping it real, don't get pissed at me, they did it. All Democrat states that said, you don't need an ID to vote, right? You don't need an ID to vote. It's amazing how many of those states literally give away free IDs. Makes you wonder. But anyway, you don't need to have an ID to vote. Do you know what that means if you're voting without an ID? You have to sign an affidavit. You have to go in and sign an affidavit. This is actually you, and that you're actually voting, and that, this is like an affidavit is the same thing you do if you're swearing out that this person shot someone and I was standing there watching. An affidavit is you making a legal statement and signing it. Normally, you would produce an ID and you would tell them where you live and all that. You could go in without an ID, sign that affidavit, and if you walk out, one of two things is going to happen. They're going to either put the vote through, or they're going to say, this vote is fraudulent. The way that they're going to figure out whether the vote is fraudulent, in most cases, is if somebody else comes in and says, no, I'm Tommy Scoville, and I'm here to vote. And they go, ooh, that affidavit one isn't any good because they said they were Tommy Scoville, and this cat's got an ID. Sounds silly as you know what, but this is honestly the truth. And the number of them that were cast in states that really kind of give you the creeps. So if you look at 2020, this is the election that people say, it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense that Joe Biden got more votes than any other presidential candidate in history because he didn't seem particularly popular and he did not go out and do anything to campaign. They tried to deny me the right to vote because my signature wasn't close enough for the 80-year-old guy looking at it. Ashley G. You know something, Ashley G? Ashley G had a lot of great comments yesterday, really kind of focused in on a lot of stuff that I found very, very interesting. This is also a great point. And you know what, people? I'm going to piss a lot of people off with this because there are people who are so ideologically hooked up that they're going to bail. And that's fine. right? It is. It's fine. But these are facts. These aren't things that I'm making up because I wanted. Yeah, you have to have an ID to buy beer. You also have to have an ID to cash a government check if you're getting one. And I'm not saying that to be racist or any of the other stuff you're going to send me in an email. But one of the reasons that they cite for this is that these people aren't making enough money that they can go and get an ID. Well, if you're not making enough money to get an ID, you're probably getting government assistance, and you're going to need an ID in order to cash that check. It is one of the worst forms of racism on earth to say that there is a group of people that are too stupid to get an ID. That's just downright disgusting because they're not. In fact, I'll tell you something about 2020. Blacks per capita outvoted whites. So they were getting to the ballot box in 2020. Trust and believe they were. But here's where it starts getting sketchy. If you take the total number of votes that came in 2020, and Ashley G, I promise I'm circling back to this, but I wanted to give you credit for it before I circle back because that is a huge part of the show. But so of all of the votes that came in, and I want some audience participation, and if you don't do it, I'm simply going to leave. But I want you to give me a rough estimate. What percentage of ballots that come in, whether or not the ballots are mailed in, no matter how they are put into the system, what percentage of those ballots does the United States of America actually check nationwide on a presidential election? Now, I will tell you this. Keep in mind, because this makes things really kind of skewed, but there were states where they hand-checked every single ballot. Now, that's obviously going to skew the numbers a little bit. But what percentage of all of the votes cast in the 2020 election were checked for fraud? Mechanic says, and I believe that's F14A Mechanic, says 15%. Wrong, but that's not a bad guess. That's what I guessed before I started this, and I'm not joking. That was my first guess. I thought 15%. It may be less than that, but I thought about 15%. Sandy Wandy says 2%. It's a little higher than 2%, but not a lot. Ashley G says 20%. The nationwide number was 7%. 7% of the votes that came in were checked. But they're going to tell us that there was only 20 to 40 cases of fraud. How in the name of God can you tell me how much fraud there was if you didn't check, are you ready? 93% of the ballots. Does this make any sense? Now, you know what else they will tell you? They didn't catch any fake IDs. If you look at all crime in the United States, and I did, and what percentage these crimes are going up, because not all of them go up every year. Murder rates will go up and down depending on what's going on in the country. But the only statistic that never goes up is voter fraud. Ever. The statistics they give you are people that got caught, but it gets so much worse. No, those are all ballots, Ashley G. Nationwide, 93% of ballots were not checked for fraud in any way. That is a fact. You can look this up, right? How did they sample the 7% that were actually checked? Well, here's the thing. One state counted every ballot, which means that if that was not put into the math equation, we would have been down at the 2 to 3% that everyone was checking. And here's how they do it, because that's a great question. They will randomly pick a bundle of ballots, and those bundles will have chain of custody on them. They will take them and they will put them away from every other ballot. And they're going to go through those and hand check them for fraud in a very, very big way, right? Allegedly. However, here's what you find out. They don't even check 100% of those. They don't even check 100% of those, because what they're going to do is they're going to say, all right, we checked 20,000 ballots. There were 9 cases of that we had to throw out. There were hundreds of thousands of ballots thrown out across the United States where they said there were irregularities. You got any idea what an irregularity is? Because I spent a lot of time researching what an irregularity is. An irregularity could be a signature not matching. Okay. That also could be fraud. They said nobody got caught with any fake IDs. I believe there was one fake ID caught. Now, fake IDs across the country are on an all-time high, right? It's incredible. They estimate somewhere between 10 and 25 million fake IDs are floating around in the US that are good ones, right? Good ones. When I was in college, you put a guy against a blue wall, you took a picture of him, and then you cut out the picture and you laminated it into a little card, and that was your fake ID. Now it's being done on computers, and they will take a card from a hotel, right? So you get into a hotel using the card. it's got a magnetic strip on the back that they imprint information on, which allows you to get into the room, right? When you push that in, that will allow you to enter the room. A college student will take that home and take acetone, and they will take the Marriott emblem off of the front, and then they will print an ID onto the top of it. And they can actually put that into this little bootstrap machine and imprint information on it. So these aren't BS fake IDs that you get in Tijuana for $10. These are people that can get into bars with these. And bar people are trained for this stuff. They're trained to spot fake IDs. One moment, people. As my friend Ashley G said, the 70-year-old person couldn't match her signature. The average poll worker is between the ages of 60 and 68. In 2020, it was slightly higher than that. There are people that are 70 and 80 and they're working. This is an issue, right? This is a really big issue. The reason is they get, are you ready? Yep. Between 2 to 4 hours of training. Catch that?
They're ready.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Between 2 to 4 hours of training. Now, to keep things fair, they will make sure that for every Republican that's counting ballots and checking ballots, they're going to put a Democrat next to them. Now, how do they decide that? They registered to vote that way. So you can go out and register to vote against the team that you're voting for. Let's say you're a Democrat, but you hate Trump. You can go out there and say, well, I'm a Republican. And now you'll be sitting next to somebody that doesn't want to see him in office, and you can give him the nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Now, if you go, that's ridiculous. They caught people, but they say it's error. I started looking through all of the different places, and they go, no fraud was found, but they fired 4 poll workers. A driver for the United States Postal Service got fired, no charges filed. He threw 3,000 ballots out, but it was an accident. So the fraud stuff, I started digging deeper. What the hell has to happen for somebody to actually get busted for fraud? Let's say I go in there to do the kind of voting I was talking about where I don't have ID. I got to go in there and I got to fill out an affidavit. They go, what's your name? I say, Tommy Scoville, right? Or I say, Johnny Scoville. I want to vote under my brother's name. And they go, wait a second. You know, I think that your brother already voted in here. And I go, holy crap, did I grab the wrong thing? I am really sorry. So you weren't trying to defraud us? If I say no, I'm probably not getting prosecuted. I know that this sounds absolutely ridiculous, but I'm not joking. They have to prove intent. So as I kept digging deeper and kept digging deeper, I'm like, how do they prove intent? If you went in and you tried to do an affidavit vote or whatever, first of all, they got to find you. How the hell are they going to find you? You gave them a fake name, right? Or a real name, but it isn't you. How are they going to find you? There's no ID, but if they did, they caught you in the parking lot and you just went, you know what? It isn't fraud. A friend of mine said, can you go down and vote for me? He's sick or whatever, but I had no intention of defrauding anyone. You're not going to get prosecuted. So they want us to believe that in 2 billion votes, since they started tabulating this crap, 1,300 people have tried to cheat the system. Put a 2 in the chat if that sounds like BS to you. And as I was saying, I checked all crime, and it all keeps going up. Identity theft, through the roof. All of these different crimes. Murder goes up and down. Depends on who's in office, and I'm not going to get political on this one, but certain parties, when they're in office, the murder rates tend to go up. The other party, when they're in office, the murder rates tend to go down. This is just something that has happened pretty consistently for a long period of time. But forget those. Talk about the other crimes. Now, if you start looking into models, they'll say there's not enough incentive, right? Like other crimes pay to go in there with 1 vote, and this is their justification for all of their statistics. Widespread fraud will get caught. This is what they all say. They say it on CNN, they say it on Fox, they say it in AI. Widespread, enough to throw an election. Well, I got news for you. In the 2020 election, the idea is at the end of the day, you got to have about 80% of the ballots that came in counted, right? Just counted, not checked for fraud or any of that BS, just counted. And if you got 80% in, then the polls close at midnight and they can tell you who the winner is by using math to say, well, these counties worked out this way, so the next one probably will, plus or minus 5%. They're not even counting all of them. But forget that, right? Forget all of that. What places did not close on time in the Trump election? And if you go in there and start looking at this, it starts to get kind of interesting because these, the places that did not close on time, all, for the most part, or most, there were 2 that went for the Republican Party. In both cases, the margin of victory was 5%, 3.9%. In all of the other ones, the margin of error was 1%, right? 0.8%, 4,000 votes, 8,000 votes. If you take all of the swing states that didn't close on time, that went for Joe Biden, you're looking at about 100,000 votes spread out among a bunch of states. This doesn't require widespread fraud. And they say that the computer models will pick it up. So I said, how do the computer models pick it up? Right? How do these smart computers pick up if there's widespread fraud? And they said, well, you'll get spikes, right? You'll see too many people voting. In the 2020 election in Pennsylvania, they had 76% of the state vote. Put a 2 in the chat if that sounds odd to you. You guys ever seen Kensington on the news, right? So basically 3/4 of the state got out to vote or mailed in to vote. That doesn't pass the smell test to me. And if a ballot gets mailed in, there's just no way to check and see if you got ripped off. Because here's the thing, it's not going to pick it up if the ballot is signed by the person that had it. So here's what I said. I started thinking to myself, well, I was a criminal for a really long time. If I wanted to swing an election, how would I do it? Right? Now, AI doesn't let you do this. You ask hypothetical questions of AI about crime of any kind, they get kind of dicey. So you have to research in other ways. But I thought, you know how easy it would be to go to a methadone clinic and say to the people coming out, no, those people don't vote. I'm not being disrespectful, but I bet less than 10% of people that are trying to kick dope are going to make it to the polls or even mail something in. But if they got an address, they more than likely got a mail-in ballot. And if you just said to them, I want to buy your ballot, I'll give you $20. You go, $20? That's a lot of money to buy for a ballot, Tommy. No, it's not. The ads that they run, they're paying $50 or $60 a vote. That's their target. So $20 is cheap as hell. So if you went to, there's 650,000 people in that program nationwide. If you got 80% of them, you got any idea the damage you could do? That would be enough to swing an election, period. But if you did it at food banks, right? If you went into inner cities, knowing statistically what percentage of those people vote and just went door to door and said, give you $10, right? I'll give you $10 for the ballot. Now it's that person's signature on a ballot. Now you go, these are ridiculous hypotheticals. The 3 I just gave you, people got busted for those 3 crimes, for real. At methadone clinics, at food banks, and canvassing inner cities. Now, did they get prosecuted? Depends on how you look at it, right? They don't pop into the equation. I agree with you. AI is wrong a lot of the time. It's difficult to vote as a felon in Florida. As a matter of fact, it's new. We had to vote. We had to vote to give them their rights back. Well, here's the thing. You know who they catch? If you look at those 1,300 people that have been caught since they started keeping track of this, the vast majority of them, a lot of them, right? I would say way over 50% are felons who are voting. They seem to be able to catch that easy as hell, right? But they're not catching any of the other stuff. Now, you could go into dive bars and say, I'll buy your vote. Come back tomorrow. Anybody that brings their stuff in, I pay $20 a your bar tab. If this sounds crazy, they did it. All of the examples I'm giving you have been done. These people have been arrested for every example I'm giving you. People that went in and said, I'm a Republican, I registered, here it is, and then sat down next to Democrats and threw away ballots, busted. People that brought ballots in so that they were throwing away one and putting one in. That's a 2 ballot swing right there, right? But the models will pick it up. If there's too many votes, you know, the turnout in the 2020 election was the highest, right? So across the country, it was spiked. However, it was way more spiked in all of those Dem states that didn't close at midnight. I'm sure that's just a coincidence. The average poll worker takes about 20 seconds to check a ballot. In those states that didn't close, like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, right, all the swing states that went for Biden, the average poll worker was taking almost 40 seconds to check each one. That doesn't really mean that's what happened, but they take the number of poll workers and divide it by all of the ballots. Seems odd. Seems really odd to me. And it gives you the idea that maybe they were taking a little bit longer because they were fudging stuff. But no fake IDs used. Not a one. And here's the other crazy thing. There have been elections in our lifetime, like Ronald Reagan, when he was running and he carried every state but his home state, right? There are elections where there are landslides. There's no concern whatsoever about who won, right? And then there are elections where people are trying to shoot one of the candidates. And the amount of fraud is the same in either one. We watched meltdowns of people saying, I'm leaving the United States. I can't live with this. Good God, who won? Remember all this garbage? but they weren't pissed off enough to try to cheat. Most of those fake IDs belong to people under the age of 30. People under the age of 30 voted more in the 2020 election than any other one ever up to that point. They came out in unbelievable amounts. How about buying a keg at a fraternity house, going in and saying, we're going to get everybody in here loaded, but y'all got to bring down your mail-in ballots because we're all voting for who do you guys like the most? We're just helping you vote. And they go, Trump. Great, we do Trump. And then they vote for whoever they want. That happened. That's been busted. All of these. Now, if you're only looking at 93%, if you're only looking at 7% of the ballots and 93% aren't going to be checked, then what the hell happened, right? You don't know. But the mail-in system, they can't catch that anyway. Their system will not catch anybody that said, I'm not going to go in there and vote in someone else's name. I'm just going to give somebody $20 to vote. Now, there are examples of this that have happened forever. But if the people don't come in and go, I'm guilty, take me off, the number of people that have been caught versus the number of people that have been convicted, but that statistic of 0.00000 all the way down to that 3, less than 1%, not even enough to give a crap about. 1,300 out of 2 billion. Those are people that got convicted. Those are people that got caught and convicted. We have no idea how bad it is. None. And there is no federal oversight. There isn't a federal system to go, we need to check the 50 states. The 50 states can do whatever they want. Every one of them has kind of different rules, right? So the government recently says, we'd like to see the voter rolls and just make sure there aren't, people on there that are 150. Or we want to make sure that there are people that are not on that list that are also in 6 other states. We just want to clean up the voter rolls and make sure that all of this is safe. Well, there was a large swath of states that said, we're not going to turn over our voter rolls to the United States government. You want to take a shot in the dark at which party every single one of those states belongs to? This is a problem. Now, before we started keeping track of all of this fraud stuff, back when John Kennedy, right? When John Kennedy was getting arrested. When John Kennedy was getting elected, they stole Illinois. By the way, this ain't a theory. They caught them, right? The people, they found this out. But we didn't find out about it until a book came out, I think, 82. They started to contest that election the second it was over. And as it turns out, no widespread stuff, right? It was over 100,000 ballots. Over 100,000. They were just stuffing ballot boxes, right? Gangsters, by the way, were in on this. But they stole Illinois. And they didn't say, I want to revote or any of this stuff. They kind of let it go. But if the largest scale voter fraud that we've ever had took more than a decade and a half, 2 decades to become fact, then how the hell can they tell us 0.00003? It's not like if there's election fraud, we're going to hear about it 15 days after the election. Don't get it messed up. We do hear about it. But I think in 2024, I believe they said there were 40 cases across the U.S. Now, yeah, Kennedy then turned on the mafia after they got him elected. That is definitely an opinion that a lot of people seem to have, right? And I'm not going to doubt that at all. There's evidence to back that up. But what's crazy is that they keep saying this on every news program. I mean, this isn't hard to research. It's not. I mean, you can do very simple questions and just start going through articles to find out exactly how they do what they do. They don't even count and check all the ballots that are culled out of the group to be checked. They just keep doing this 2%, 1%, 2%, and then the computers are going to come in and go, well, we can predict that this is, and they come out and say, we can certify this election 95%. They're not saying 95% of the ballots have been checked. It sounds a hell of a lot like that. Right, 5-10 days after the election, when they go 95%, they mean that in their opinion and their computer models, there is a 95% chance that this election is legit. But you only checked 7% of the ballots for fraud. You threw out hundreds of thousands of ballots for irregularities. F you, I'm sorry. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. I want to see the irregularities. What the hell does that mean? Well, signatures don't match. I call that fraud. And I don't mean everybody that doesn't match. But as my friend said, right, these are 70-year-old people checking them. right? These are very old people checking them. And I'll tell you something. As most of you know, I spent a little time behind the wall. And I knew guys that would say, yeah, I'm voting for so-and-so. And I'd go, you can't vote. Yeah, my brother goes down and does it with my ID. And I'm not talking about one or two dudes. There would be people in there going, hey, I have voted in every election since I was 18 and I've been a felon the entire time. I've never been off paper. I voted in every election. No one ever got caught. So those people just fall through the cracks, right? Who pays the fact checkers? There aren't fact checkers. There aren't. The federal government, you would think, would maybe spin out a department whose job it was to take a look at all of this stuff and make sure that there's none of this going on. Postal worker, right? A postal worker got paid to toss out 3,000 ballots. These 3,000 ballots ended up on the side of the road. He got fired. He didn't get prosecuted. It was a mistake. Fell off the truck. Missed me with that crap. Missed me with that crap. All of the ballots were for one party, right? These kind of things, and they just get buried. They disappear because we don't have to worry about this. Less than 1%. They don't compare the voter rolls against felon records. Well, you would think that they do, right? But here's the thing. Here's what will have to happen. The felon that votes will have to be in the 7% of the ballots that get caught, right? That get caught. And yeah, they will check them. And they will check to see if the people are on the do not vote list. And if you're on the do not vote list, then you're probably going to get arrested and prosecuted. Why? Because you're poor. If they catch somebody, I mean, these are felons. But if they catch somebody that works for Acorn, right, the odds that these people get prosecuted are very, very slim. In fact, 2 billion votes, 1,300. I don't buy that, right? I don't buy that. And they talk about how the model will pick up, yeah, the 7% that are checked. It is absolutely crazy, actually. It's disturbing to beat hell. But they will come out and tell us, and I'll tell you, you guys want to know why I can tell you that this is, when I had done all of my research, right, I went in and asked AI to put this into a format that would make it easier for me to read. And they did, said it beautifully. And when I was done, said, wow, this is literally like, you're not proving that the system is crooked. You're blowing up the matrix, right? I went back 8 minutes later, it was gone. And I said, can you just pull up the conversation that we just had? I need that back. What conversation? No joke. And I can go through AI, and for a month and a half, anything I was researching is in there, except this topic. I find that a little creepy. And if you use other models, anything I do, I check against 5 AI models. And all of the other ones will say, no matter what you say to them, nope, there's only less than 1%. And you go, yeah, but you're only checking. That's okay, because the models and the and what are you putting into the machine for the models? You're taking the 1,300 people that have been busted in 2 billion votes and going, okay, everything we do from this point on is based on that maxim. There isn't any fraud. There's no point in talking about this because there isn't any fraud.
Nothing to see here, people.
Nothing to see here. Every other crime goes up. The most contentious election in history. How many times has Trump been shot at now? Right? For real. But no one out there is going to go, this election we might try to cheat a little bit. Nope, that number doesn't get up from that 0.00003. Bull scat. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. And with all due respect to anybody listening, you got to be an idiot to buy it. It's literally like saying this is the amount of dope we caught coming across the Mexican border last year. That's the amount of dope that's coming into America. Well, you can look around and go, in fact, one of the AI models, and I'll put them out there because I can't stand that model anyway. It was the one designed by the guy at Facebook. It said to me, look, what you're saying is just not based in reality. So I said, all right, let's change the subject. How much dope came across the Mexican border last year? Can you give me the amount? And it tells me, and I go, is that every bit of dope that was coming across the border? No, of course not. So if bad ballots or if cheating at the polls caused people to drop dead, we'd have some much better statistics, right? But they can't BS what's coming across the southern border because overdoses kill more people than any other type of death in our country. So it's pretty damn obvious. I'll tell you this. They say that on average, they assume that they catch between 15 and 20% of the dope coming across the border. If we apply that same kind of math, but they will say to you, no, because there's no benefit. You're not going to make any money. BS. What would either party pay someone who says, I can deliver you 60,000 votes in a city. And if you go, there's no way you can deliver. That's a lot of votes, Tommy. Oh, no, it's not. I started doing this as if you're a criminal. So I looked at larger cities and I looked at the number of people that are in methadone clinics, homeless shelters. By the way, both of these have already been busted. Rehab centers, all of these have had cases where people were caught doing this. People that were going in and they'd say dispensaries. They've caught people at dispensaries, weed for votes. Sorry, people. Any way that you can buy a vote, it's been done and caught. But they don't end up in the statistics. You got to go out and actually find it. For instance, a mayoral race in Miami, they had to overturn that bad boy because they were picking up people at homeless shelters and giving them $5 to vote. That's not a good thing. Great video to watch was Speak the Truth. Army Ranger having a conversation with AI over the Israel stuff. He proved AI wrong nonstop, arguing with it, and would say, "So sorry, I am wrong." Well, you know what? Here's the thing with this. You got to be really careful with that, though, and here's the reason why. I have seen people, I've never done it personally because I don't, the days of me playing with AI, I use AI to find the files or the books. I'm not going to let AI tell me something because I don't trust AI as far as I could throw my computer. So all I want to know is the books, the articles, and then I'll go do the reading, and that will make a lot more sense to me. But if you say to an AI model, what's 10 plus 10? And it says to you 20. If you say to them, no, it's not 20, it's 15. The AI model will come back and go, no, it's not. In fact, I'll show you 10 things and you can count them, right? Like dots or whatever. If you continue to say it, AI will tap out because its job is to keep you there engaged. So it's not going to piss you off and say, no, you're wrong. That's a rare thing. Now, I work on 5 different models. I check everything because it's just easier. You will find that certain models lean very hard in one direction or another. Grok, the Grok 4 model is the one that tends to be a little less skeezy. They're all skeezy. But I'll tell you what's really, like for me, because people go, I can't believe you do that. In fact, one woman said, I'm satanic because I was using AI. But this is what I use it for. I'm not joking. I'm not exaggerating. I read so many books when I was locked up. I don't think you could wrap your brain around it. There were periods of time I was reading a book a day. I don't remember the books, but I will remember things that I read in the book. And you can go to AI and say, I read a book. In the opening chapter, there was a guy trying to pick up a spy. This was a book written by an ex-Mossad agent. I said, there's a red Ferrari in there. It was a 308. Here's the name of the book. Now I can go grab that. And I mean, instantly, they get you the name of the book. Or there was a study done on this. They get me the study. I'm not going to let them summarize that thing because they're going to tell me exactly what they want to tell me. They're going to slant this thing in one direction or another. But of all of the AI models, I put the same thing into every one of them, and everyone came back and said 0.0003, even after I did my research. And Grok was like, wow, yeah, you can't trust that election. And there was no argument. It was the first thing when I put it in, they said, yeah, you can't trust an election in the United States. How can you trust anything if the statistics are based on the people you caught? And this is what the BS from the people at the centers that study this, the Brennan Center, and all these people that come out and go, you know, NPR, CNN, Fox, they'll come out and say, well, you have to understand there's an algorithm that takes all of this stuff into account. You're going to take into account what? The people you didn't catch? How do you run that number? Come on, a little critical thinking. So you say out of 2 billion, 13,000 have been caught. We counted this many votes. Run that by that percentage, and we'll assume that there was maybe 1% of fraud. We'll bump it up to 3 to keep it safe. BS. And you don't have to do fraud in the entire United States of America. It's not how our system's built. You need Pennsylvania, you need Wisconsin, you need Arizona, you need Nevada, right? There's just Florida. There are states that if you can swing that state, that's why they call them swing states. And they win by margins, and they don't close at midnight. All of these things are sketchy. And when the government reaches out and says, we want all of this stuff, 14 states says, we're not going to give you any of our voter rolls. We will fight and go all the way to the Supreme Court. And they are all Democrat-run states. And this just keeps coming back. The biggest fraud we ever had, Illinois, Democrat state. It's just how it goes, man. And I don't give a crap. I live in another country. But these aren't things that you can debate, right? Every problem that we have, you can look this stuff up without using AI. You can go and use Google. Just look up all the states that traditionally don't seem to close on time. Now, there are Republican states in there, but every time you see it, the margin of victory is 6 or 5 or 3. In all of the other ones, it's just enough that you could swing an election. Really damn easy if you were trying to. Wisconsin was like, now I shouldn't misquote this. One of the states in 2020 was 8,000 votes. You got any idea how easy you can get 8,000 votes? I'm sorry, man. You can. You can go through and ask AI to say, mailed out ballots in the last 5 elections. Give me a name of every single person that didn't vote. Terrifying, huh? People that haven't showed up but keep getting ballots mailed out to them for the last 3 elections. Now you get 8,000 people. Take Wisconsin, 3,000 polling centers. You don't need a lot of people to show up at each of those, but they all go in and sign an affidavit. There's your 8,000 votes. And you know what? How many people said, yeah, when I went to sleep, he was winning? Right? Remember? When I went to sleep, he was winning. We haven't counted any of these. We haven't counted any of them. It's the okie doke. And here's what they're going to tell you. You start doing research, you're going to come back and go, Tommy, I don't buy it. Tammy, good to see you. I'm glad you're here. You're going to come back and go, I think you're wrong on this. They have a system that checks all of these. It's computered. They check signatures. When they tell you that, check how many states are using it. Check how many states are using it. Hey, it's my girl. What's up, Reese? Good to see you. I'm glad that you are here. I will see you shortly. I'm going to be doing a show on that other channel tonight because it's fun and doggone it, people like it. This just keeps getting worse. Honest to God, it does. It just keeps getting worse. When I went through, I came up with 11 different ways that you could crack this system easily, right? Just thinking like a dirtbag. Most of you could probably do it. It was probably a little easier for me. But weaknesses within the system. What you shoot for is people that are, vulnerable. People that don't have a vested interest in voting because the taxes and all the things that people are talking about, they're just trying to make a living. They don't give a crap about any of that. Those people are the ones that are easy to go on today and look at Kensington. I pulled up the voter rolls from Kensington. It would blow your mind how many people voted. I mean, get a look. It's the largest open air drug flea market on the planet, and better than 60% of the population in that particular area voted. You buy that? Because I sure as shit don't. And that's one of the places that would be so easy. You just go in and go, hey, $2 a pill. How'd you like 10 of them? And if you think $20 is a lot to spend, you should see what it costs to run those huge commercials, right? I approved this message. And they're not, even if they target them in states, you're looking at $50. If you can swing a vote by one of those, it's about $50 a vote. That's why it costs billions of dollars for these people to get elected. It'd be a hell of a lot easier just to cheat. And if you look for people who are really in danger, buy somebody dope, buy somebody beer, buy somebody weed, buy somebody food, buy somebody anything that they need, shit, yeah, I'll give you a ballot that I've already got my name signed on. And if my name is signed on the ballot, you give me $20 for it, how are you going to catch that? For real, whistleblowers. And it has happened, right? A neighbor sees this and goes, man, this guy's down here handing people money for this stuff. It's been caught. This has happened. But they're going to keep telling you that nothing to see here, man. 0.0000. It's going to have to go up through the roof to get to 0.5%. BS. How are you going to tell me? I mean, apply anything to this, right? We have 100 kids. We're going to check 7 of them for COVID and come out and say there's a 7% COVID rate in the 3rd grade at this school. Logic would go, well, that doesn't make any damn sense. And then if you were to take that and go, all right, how many elementary schools do we have in the United States? So 7 out of every 100. So do the math and we'll come back and tell you how many kids are going to get COVID. No, nothing to worry about. No harm, no foul. Does this sound stupid to you? Because it sounds really stupid to me. This is why I keep talking about critical thinking. Because if you don't apply it, you're like that woman that said, he's back in the United States. After I do 150 shows with that backdrop. And you know what's funny? If you don't know what I'm talking about, a woman left a comment and said, because I was not here where I had done 10 shows. I was in another room that's got the sheer curtains that you could see out onto the Malecone. And she was like, Tommy's back in the US. Long con all over again. If you look through that curtain, even when I'm sitting there, you can see the jetty with the lights on it and say the name of a beer in another language. Just funny stuff. But critical thinking is dead. You see, now people will go, no, elections can't be stolen. It's absolutely safe. What makes you say that? Well, they say, who the hell are they? Critical thinking is, who are they? What do they base that off of? Because what they base it off of is those 7 kids that have COVID, right? Just the ones they tested. Or worse, they test 7 and only 2 have it. And they go, out of every 100 kids, only 2 get COVID. We got nothing to worry about, nothing to see here. 93% of the ballots in the election that people say was not stolen. And I'm not saying it was stolen. All I'm saying is we don't have a freaking clue whether it was stolen or not. Right? We don't. Because 93% of those ballots never got checked for fraud. Now, if they got checked for fraud, the people that mailed them in, we don't know. You don't know if that person mailed it in or if somebody gave them $20 to mail it in, or if a post office guy took 700 of them, ran it against databases of people that do not vote, and then mailed the stuff in. We don't know. We know that hundreds of thousands were thrown out for irregularities, but you don't want to prosecute those bad boys. If you start doing the research and find out where most of those ballots that were irregular didn't get prosecuted, 5 will get you 10. You know where that is, right? Now, here's the thing. We'll know. But by the time we do know, it will be completely irrelevant to everybody. Critical thinking says this. The guy didn't run as many ads as the guy he was competing against. The guy he was competing against was filling arenas and flying to sometimes 2 in a day. This dude hung out in his basement, did a couple of shows, and when he did, he said, if you're not voting for, if you're voting for Trump, you ain't black. Like, he did some things that tend to rock a candidate. But they want us to believe that everyone was so excited that this dude got more votes than any other president in history without campaigning. That's impressive stuff. And if you do some research, when he did do the meetings, they would pull all of the stuff in so that it was this big. And they said, we didn't want a lot of people in there because of COVID. Miss me with that crap. You would sell your soul to get elected, but you were worried about the people. No. Mail-in ballots are a cancer. I'm sorry, they are. They're convenient, but they're also a wide open thoroughfare to rip off an election. Non-ID voting, you got to be woofing me. You can go in and vote without an ID. Well, then I can do it in 6 states. If I don't need a freaking ID, all I need to do is find voter rolls of people that don't vote. And I promise you that you can turn AI loose on that and find 10 million people across the country that get mail-in ballots that have not voted, and what statistical anomaly are they going to catch? Those votes aren't dirty, right? They're just mail-in. Just mail-in vote. Or I'll just go in and sign an affidavit. Well, if we catch the person, they don't catch any fake IDs. You really believe that nobody voted with a fake ID? Huh? They busted people going to harvest ballots at colleges. Now, if you're harvesting one at a college, those aren't mail-ins, right? Chances are those people are going to have to walk into a polling booth. However, if you're looking for fake IDs, that is the group. And more college kids voted than ever before. How do we know? That they weren't walking in with somebody else's, just a fake ID, walking in and going, yeah, I'm going to vote. Here it is. If they caught them, they could go, I'm just trying to vote for my friends. So you weren't trying to commit fraud? No, I was not. All right, have a good day. Head on home. Wish they did that with bank robbery. I wasn't trying to rob the bank, man. I went in there with a withdrawal slip and they just gave me a bag full of money. But there was no criminal intent. The person that basically has to admit the fraud in order to get prosecuted. 0.0000 BS. BS. This is unalived people were voting. There were also people voting who were 160, right? 160. If this person was alive, they'd be $1.60. And you know who they catch? Felons. Felons. Those are the only people that get caught. Once again, they're not going to be able to get a lawyer. And now intent's going to be a lot easier because these people are terrified. The federal government's there. They're barking at them, going, oh, you know the trouble you're in? You just voted as a felon. Here's the deal. You plead guilty to this today so we can get to that 000. And we'll put you on probation for this. We won't even lock you up. Yeah, I'll take it. I talked about this on the show many times. I pled guilty to something I didn't do. I didn't. But I was a junkie, and the idea of I might go to prison for a long time on this, they said, you can walk out here today, you just have to plead guilty. Woman said, no time, no nothing, right? Not even probation, just one more felony. Yeah, I'll plead guilty to it. Like, who cares? At this point, I just want to get out. But all of these statistics, like we joke all the time on here, right? 75% of the statistics are made up on the spot. But this is absolutely abhorrent. Now, you know what? I love Dinesh D'Souza. I really do. His show is fantastic. The other one is Project Veritas. And while I was researching this, there were a lot of people. Yes, I will be there shortly, Reese. Almost done. The There were a lot of people that said you really need to check out Project Veritas. I dig it, but a lot of the stuff that he said during the time that the election was going on did not pan out. It would be great for my argument right now, but it didn't pan out. Dinesh D'Souza is a little different. Dinesh D'Souza does incredible research. He was tracking people riding around on bikes, dumping ballots. Nobody gets prosecuted. If nobody gets prosecuted, then there is no fraud. Do you understand what I'm saying here? The only way we will hear about fraud is if the person gets arrested, gets prosecuted, and convicted. Because after a little more research, 1,600 people have been arrested for fraud in the 2 billion ballots cast. But 1,300 of them got convicted. It's absolutely ridiculous. I'm not telling you that Trump won that election. I'm telling you that we don't know if he won that election. But I'm telling you that each time you come up with an irregularity, this state needs to do a recount. This state didn't close at midnight. This state was won by 0.5%, right? Every one of them is a blue state. Not telling you that that proves anything, because it doesn't, right? In the past, I would have. But I'll tell you what it does prove, right? It proves that they probably should have counted way more or looked at way more than 7% of the ballots that were cast for fraud. They probably should have looked at a crap load more than that. And their argument is this: can't be done. Can't be done. How are you going to check 175 million or whatever the number of votes that come in? Or how are you going to do that? I don't give a crap. Figure it out. Or come up with a new system. Because the system in the United States is based on the fact that we have faith in that system. And when that faith begins to erode, and here's the kicker: if you say, I don't think Biden won that, they are going to paint you in a corner and in a light you wouldn't believe. Put a 2 in the chat if you know what Bernie Sanders did. What, it's about a week ago? Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you guys know what Bernie Sanders did a week ago? Depending on what news you watch, you might know this and you might not. Most people that I have talked to and asked had no idea. But I'll tell you something. Bernie Sanders used to be the mayor of Burlington, Vermont. Johnny Scofield.
Sure was.
But now a very close friend of mine is the mayor. How funny is that, man? A guy that I went to high school with is now the mayor of Burlington, Vermont. However, he left his party. He bailed. He's no longer a Democrat. And you know what his statement was? He kind of felt like he got lied to. He said, they kept telling me you can't shut down the border. You can't stop that. There's no way to stop the people coming in. It's impossible. He said, and they did it like that. Like I said, they threw a switch. Whether you like Trump or not, he shut down the border. He did. He stopped what was happening there. I mean, threw an e-brake on it. So Bernie Sanders goes, I'm out. I'm out. I'll tell you something else. What percentage of Republicans and Democrats, what percentage of Republicans and Democrats believe that climate change is one of the biggest problems on Earth today? Bill Gates just came out and said, yeah, I've been wrong about the climate change thing. You know Bill Gates, don't you? Spent a lot of time with Epstein.
Sure did.
Yeah, not a good guy. Yes, he did. He jumped ship. And Bill Gates came out and said, yeah, no, it's not what I thought it was. I was wrong. I mean, yes, climate change is happening, but it's not destroying the world. It's not an imminent threat like Thunberg says. How dare you? Oh, I'll get some hate for that. How dare you? How about 2%?
She's a week away from doing OnlyFans, I promise you.
You think she has an OnlyFans?
I'm done.
I wouldn't look. There's not many people I could say that about, but I wouldn't even look. Yeah, 2%. 2% of both parties think that climate change is one of the biggest issues threatening us. If you go down a list and look at it, it takes you like 10 minutes to get to the bottom of it. But they're going to pump it so hard on every platform that you can watch that you would assume that this is everybody's freaking out about this. Hollywood's worried. Everybody's worried. Climate change was started as a way to sell books in California. You know what? That may be the truth. But I think it was started to create another stock market. I make a lot of friends with this one too. You remember something called cap and trade? Okay, here's the deal. If you got a business and that business is polluting, right? They will look at how much carbon you're putting into the atmosphere. And if you're putting more out there than you're supposed to, you can go buy some credits and go, well, here's some credits. Because you're going to buy those from other businesses that have an excess, like they're not using anywhere near as much carbon. Let's say you got a huge business and you make stuff out of wood, right? You're not burning anything. You're not, you're just carving. So you got all of those. Well, these things are bought and sold on a market. Yeah. Anytime there's a market involved, it's like a bookie. Whether you win or lose, you got to pay the bookie, right? So all of this is going on, and hundreds of millions of dollars are created out of thin air for people that come up with these BS topics. Yeah, we didn't have a drug epidemic, right? There was no drug epidemic until it was the #1 cause of death in our country. And here's the thing, like I'm not bragging. I promise you I'm not. But I remember being a kid when they started talking about this stuff. And they said, we've never had it this hot on our planet. The last time it was this hot was that existential crisis. The last time it was this hot on planet Earth was 30,000 years ago. Critical thinking says, what the hell were we doing with Cadillac Escalades, right? And large-scale cow farts that were destroying that back then? Well, that was different. You missed me. You lost me. How is that different? Right? Shouldn't that be the same thing? What happened back then? And they say, well, we go hot and cold. If you're of a specific age, like my age, I remember reading, like Newsweek magazine and stuff was writing articles that we were about to go into an ice age that was going to kill us. Do you know the definition? Put the definition, right? If you know the definition of an ice age, what is an ice age? Throw a deuce in the chat if you know what an ice age is. You would assume that that's when all of the dinosaurs get frozen and all that stuff, Johnny Scoble. It's if the North and South poles are frozen. That's the definition, for real. I'm pretty sure in my entire life, we've always been in an ice age. Am I wrong? The EPA needs to be changed to the EEA, the Environmental Extortion Agency. Brock Bandy, that's a hell of a comment. This is frightening to me, people. It's frightening because the disinformation, how many people out there believe this garbage? For real, believe this stuff. And I'm not saying that we're not screwing up the planet. I think we are. And I think we need to pump the brakes on it. But there's a great meme. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it shows the ocean. And there's a picture from 1880, right? 1800s. Yeah, find that if you can. If there's any chance you can. But it shows a picture of an island in 3 different massive amounts of time between these. And the water is at the exact same level, right? Nothing has changed at all. And it says rising sea levels. Okay. When they started really pumping this stuff, we were going to be underwater, right? There wasn't going to be a Florida. There wasn't going to be a Manhattan. They were talking about how the oceans were going to rise by 15 feet by then. The problem, it's like saying the Earth is going to end January 5th. If you come up short on that, I'm never going to believe you again. Right? Don't make a prediction that does not come true. I'm never going to believe you again. Well, none of them have. And I'll tell you something. With all this climate change stuff, when Al Gore was doing this, if you disagreed with him, you were gone. You were gone. They didn't allow dissent. They also allowed something else. Tell me if this makes sense to you. All of the people that were working on these climate change models were emailing each other to discuss this. That's not your great scientific method, folks. They're supposed to come up with the independent, right? And then peer reviews and all of this crap. No, they just all got together and said, well, if we need to fudge a little data. There you go. I don't know if you can see that, but no, yeah, you see that?
1880, 1910, and 2020.
Yeah.
Unchanged.
1880, 1910, and 2020. And it has not changed a lick, which means that must be the part of the ocean that's not rising. Kind of like a glass of water. The left side's going to stay exactly the way it is. That right side, though, I smell BS. I smell BS. And I got news for you. When governments lie to you, there's only 2 reasons. One is control, right? And the other is cash. They want to take more control away from you and put the screws in, or it's just a straight cash grab. I happen to believe that the election model we're talking about is to keep people in power, and they're willing to do anything to pull this on. Anything. It is
the banana in the tailpipe.
It is the banana in the tailpipe. If you know that, I'm not gonna fall for no banana in my tailpipe. I'm done falling for any of this crap. And I hope the rest of you are. I don't expect you to believe anything I just said. So you can go out and do the research on it. But I promise you what you're going to come up with is, and they'll try to BS you in the beginning because they will say, yeah, there were states that counted every single ballot. You damn right there were, right? Georgia happened to be one of them. By the way, some of the prosecutions came out of Georgia. True story. In 2020, there were prosecutions that came out of there. You know what? Why didn't I think of this? This is probably the part of the Earth that's right up near that ice wall that keeps the water on the flat Earth from going over the edge. That's a great comment. Fish. You know something? I don't want to get anybody in the audience. I sat next to one on an airplane. on an airplane. The person said to me,
One in the park.
I said, that, they said, where are you heading? I said, I'm going out to California. What are you doing? I said, I'm visiting some friends. What are you doing? I'm going to a flat earth conference. And I went, and then I realized that they weren't laughing. I went, oh, are you a reporter? No, I'm attending. I believe the earth is flat. I said, seriously? And the person said, yes, I do. And they said to me with confidence, like you would not believe, and you cannot prove that it is not in any way. And I go, I think I can. I used to sail, right? And they have this thing called a sextant, right? It's a cool little thing. You put your eye through it. Yeah. What's that? Settle down. It's a sextant. So you put the sextant, you get the sun to come through. There's two little things. And then you put it on the horizon. You couldn't use a sextant on a flat earth. Not sure if you realize that, but it is impossible to use a sextant on a flat earth. And when I got done doing the explanation, the person went, no. Boy, I really punctuated that. I wasn't even there for it. It's not far off from believing that you can tell us that there is less than 1% fraud in elections when you only check 7% of the ballots. If I had a microphone, I would drop it.
Drop that one that shocks us. I hate that.
Well, if you don't touch the top of it, it won't shock you. You're supposed to talk at it, not put your lips or your arms on it. I mean, there's a lot of electricity going on in those things. It's just a possibility, right? And every once in a while, you kind of need a shock. Shocks you right into the system. All right, people, I'm going to call it a night, and hope that the men in black don't show up. I'm telling you, I'm creeped out. There are certain things that I think when you talk about, you probably shouldn't be talking about. Reese will yell at me later. You shouldn't be talking about this stuff, honestly. But the thing is this. There are people that talk about the elections, and there are people that say, hey, this was stolen. They don't know that it was stolen. My point is, no one knows jack shit if all you're checking is 7%. And whatever computer models, right, and algorithms you're coming up with, you have to put math into that. And the math is 2 billion votes.
The math isn't mathing.
It doesn't math. It was the F aroundiest of times, but it was also the find outiest of times. Hi, I'm Tommy. I will see you on the next one. And remember, folks, it's a fairly dangerous man. Good night. Love you.